wonderful lawyer cat. I mean, what is better than a cat video combined with a lawyer joke, which is essentially what this is, right?
Essentially.
Essentially, that's what this is. And if you haven't heard about it, it was attorneys in a conference. Was it a deposition? It was something official.
Mhm.
One of the attorneys in a Zoom room had a filter on that made him a talking cat, and he couldn't figure out how to turn it off. And it was hilarious. So I'm trying to find the talking cat filter on my Zoom, and I can't find it. It must be some kind of a some kind of a plugin or some kind of a special, add-on or extension or something like that.
I might have that.
You might have that.
Background and filters, video
Yeah.
filters.
I'm looking at backgrounds and filters, but I mean, this is like an entire cat face.
It's not this.
Let me see.
No,
No.
but that's special in its own way.
That's good. I wouldn't get rid of that. I would definitely keep that.
An entire cat face.
Yes, and Ellie's going to share it. Oh, and we are 1 minute away, and I'm going to share my sound.
Okay.
Hold on a second. We
Is this
are
the new music?
flying by the seat of our pants. Yeah, I'll go with the same one that we did last time. I think so. All right. Here we go.
I like it.
Good morning. Good morning, everyone. Wow, I thought I'd impress everybody with the new mustache I grew. But then I see Eric Lundblom, and I'm never going to be able to compete with that. Jeez, Eric, you look great. You look like you haven't, left the house for a while.
I've left the house, but no haircut and no beard.
I love no beard
Since
cut.
last year.
I love it.
Wow.
Yes, this thing is courtesy of Zoom. I have been playing around with the Zoom filters, and you could give yourself a hat, you could give yourself goggles, 3D glasses, one of these, but you could also give yourself like that. How would I look at a mustache? I think that's it. I think that's me right there.
The goat.
A goat. Yeah. Yep. Or like
I
that.
didn't recognize you, Todd.
All right. I think I'm better. And you could also do eyebrows. Look at that. We could just play with this all day. This is a blast. And this all came up here. Let's see. I got to get rid of, how do you get rid of this? So you could do that.
That's the best.
Yeah, that is the best. And this all came up because of a headline that I read, and maybe some of you just glanced at. The headline was like attorney in attorney's meeting can't turn off his cat visual effect. So an attorney was in an official meeting of some sort, and he was a cat on Zoom, and he couldn't figure out how to turn it off. And I read the headline and kind of chuckled. I thought, what's better than a cat video combined with a lawyer joke? It's like the perfect humor. And then Ellie actually sent it to me, and it's funnier than I thought it would be.
Mr. Ponton, I believe you have a filter turned on in the video settings. You might want to take
We're
a look.
trying to, can you hear me, Judge?
I can hear you. I think it's a filter.
It is, and I don't know how to remove it. I've got my assistant here. She's trying to, but I'm prepared to go forward with it. I'm here live. I'm not a cat.
I can see that. I think if you click the up arrow next to this.
All right. So the question is, which one of us is going to do that accidentally the first? we actually have Dennis. Oh, okay. Yeah, you're on our bingo card, Dennis, just so you know. Ellie and Sean and I have ranked everybody 1 to 10, who's going to do it first. And most of the people actually who we have on our card are here. So Larry, you're a very good candidate. Larry Googans. I'm actually number 3. So
I thought you'd be top 3.
So good morning, everybody. Good to see everybody again. I'm Todd. This is the Veterans Breakfast Club. This is our Wednesday morning breakfast. And the Wednesday mornings are usually a little looser, more open conversation. But we do have a couple people who I would love to have speak. Chris Parolo is one who's a Desert Storm video veteran and wants to share a story. Bob Dvorak, I have a lot of your good to see you. A lot of your pictures I'd love to share. Dale Gower, I was thinking of you all morning because I was reading up on the Polar Star, which you were on. You were Polar Star, not Polar Sea, correct, Dale?
Yeah, Polar Sea was commissioned after us, and I've never been able to find out too much about it, but apparently it was damaged beyond repair.
Yes.
And is decommissioned, and they're using it for parts.
Yes. I mean, the Polar Star sounds like it could be, and this is going a long way, it could be like the worst ship to be on because it's the only one of its kind. While you're laughing at May, it's the only one of its kind. They don't make parts for it anymore. So every time they have to repair it, they cannibalize it from the Polar Sea, or they go on eBay. And apparently they find some things on eBay. I don't know how they do that, but it's the only heavy icebreaker that the United States has. Russia has 53. Canada has, 7 or 8 or 10. China, who knows how many they have. Apparently they're building a lot. But this new Defense Authorization Act that was just passed overrode the president's veto, I think January 1st, I think has authorized the building of 6 more icebreakers, 3 heavy icebreakers, and I think funded the building of 1.5 of them or something like that. So there will be a new heavy icebreaker debuting, it seems, in 2024. That's what I'm able to get at. But I was just kind of doing like these video tours of the Polar Star, and I just, gosh, if you were stuck on that in the middle of ice somewhere, I
don't think they've ever been stuck. Unless they would. I don't think they've ever actually broke down in the middle of the ice anywhere. They've managed pretty well because they have actually three engine, 3 screws controlled by 3 different banks of engines. Their diesel electric is their main propulsion. So they have 2 16-cylinder American Locomotive Company diesels running generators to control electric motors that run the screws. Plus, in addition to that, they have Pratt Whitney turbines that can also run the screws. So they have a lot of options.
They have a lot of options. Okay.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
How does an icebreaker work? Is it just like does it just have a really forward thick hull and then it just pushes its way through the ice? Is that basically what happens? I would imagine, but I don't know.
Actually, it runs up on top of the ice and breaks it. The hull's designed, specifically designed to run up on top of the ice, and the weight of the icebreaker breaks it. The Polar Star weighs 13,000 tons. So that's a lot of weight. Plus they have a 6-foot tube running port and starboard in the ship that they can transfer fuel or water back and forth to rocket, back and forth to break the ice. When I was on it, we went through a 31-foot pressure rig. We had to hit it twice, and we went through it. And we could go through 6 feet of ice at 10 knots, just because it just ran over top of it. As far as the construction, the steel's specialty steel. It's called CG 537, and as it gets colder, it gets more springy. And it's 1 3/4 inches thick at the bow, so it's pretty heavily built.
As it gets colder, it gets springier.
Yeah.
Gosh.
I don't know what the actual term for that is. I'm not a metallurgist, but it's a specialty steel that they made for the Polar Star. I I don't know if they've used it after that or not. And the superstructures, the steel one, that's HY80, which is what they use for the hulls of nuclear submarines.
And Ryan, I had the same exact question. Before I met Dale and talked a lot with Dale. Dale and I traveled together in Vietnam and Europe. And before I had these great conversations with Dale, I always pictured like an icebreaker. I pictured it as like a Warner Brothers cartoon with, with a ship that had big jaws that opened up and like ate the ice, something technological. But it really is just like, you go on top of the ice and break it down, and I actually have a short video.
How heavy is that difference? 13,000 tons compared to like a battleship?
Good question.
Oh, I think a battleship's like 27 to 30,000 ton, like Missouri, I think is up in that class. But compared to a destroyer, it would be, I think destroyers are about 4,000 tons. So to give you an example.
Okay.
And here is a video of time-lapse video of the Polar Star pulling into Antarctica, which, by the way, does not look that bad. I guess I always picture Antarctica as a howling wasteland of snow and ice, but this doesn't look too bad, but maybe it's summertime there.
Everything's
It is.
melting.
They always go north when it's summer in the north and south when it's summer in the south.
Got it. Okay. And here's a time-lapse video of the Polar Star pulling in, and it says 10 feet of ice. So you could see how they do it. And it's just like grunt work. It really is grunt work. And Dale, how thick is the ice that it could go through? 20 feet, did you say?
Well, we went through 31 feet, where
31
pressure
feet.
ridges where the ice rides on top of each other due to the motion of the water.
Okay.
Okay, so it stacks up, and we went through the thickest one I went through. We were on with 31 foot thick, but also they also carry C4 on board in case you can't break through it, get stuck, and they can blow it up. But they never had to do that when I was on board.
Talk about the old-fashioned way. I mean, this is just like backing up and slamming over it, backing up and going over it. I mean, it's just. And what I
was sorry to interrupt, Todd.
Go ahead.
No pun intended. This is taken from Ellie. I think your video's frozen.
Oh no! You're kidding me.
I will not credit for that joke. Ellie said it in the chat.
What the heck is wrong with? I've been having all kinds of problems. So you did not see what I was seeing?
No.
Oh gosh, darn it! Gosh darn it! Here, let me stop sharing, and I'm going to try and do it again.
And the old icebreaker did get stuck in the ice. The Coast Guard has a pin that you get if you had to winter over someplace, if you were stuck.
Can you see this, or do you see nothing?
Nothing.
I'll take a look.
Yeah, look up if you can, Ellie or Sean. Icebreaker through 10 feet of ice. Polar Star arrives. Okay. Gosh, that is so frustrating. Something's going on with my Zoom.
Hey, Todd, can I ask Dale a question?
Sure.
Hey, Dale, when were you down at McMurdo Station?
I never made a south trip. When we commissioned the Polar Star, and they had veritable pitch screws on it, which means the old icebreakers had to stop the direction of the shaft and reverse them to back up. Well, the veritable pitch screws on Polar Star changed the pitch of the screws, so they went like a turboprop in an airplane. So they could go without reversing the shaft, they could go forward or reverse. Well, the mechanism that controlled that, there was an argument when they were building it as to whether it was heavy enough or not, and it turned out that it wasn't. So on our first trip north after the commissioning, it sheared 2 of the 3 arms off that controlled the pitch on the screws. So it had to go back into the yards until the screws were re-engineered.
Well, you're going to think this is really coincidental, but I was the action officer in the Pentagon for Operation Deep Freeze from the years 2006 through 2008. And I was actually involved with the coordination of all of the operations within the DOD for Operation Deep Freeze, which include the Coast Guard with the icebreakers. And yes, the picture you were looking at was summertime. The summertime down in Antarctica is like around, it starts around the end of October and it goes to the end of January. And then the fall and winter season kicks in. The average temperature down there was like 35 to 40 degrees when I was down there around January 23rd of 2006. And I'm really excited to say that I celebrated my 52nd birthday at the South Pole.
Oh, wow.
Fun. That is so cool.
I mean, and they have LC-130s down at McMurdo Station that fly all the supplies down to the South Pole. Okay. During that time period, the fuel, the food, whatever they need. And also there's 2 ships that come in and they bring in all the winter oversupplies. That's why the polar stars there are breaking up the ice. So these 2 ships come in and they bring in all the supplies for winter over, and they haul all of the garbage out that's stored down there into McMurdo Station, and they take all the garbage to landfills in Chile, which is amazing. But it's truly an international operation down there in Antarctica and in the South Pole. And I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. It's just
you were at that station, McMurdo Station?
Yes, I was. I was down there for like about 10 days. And it's amazing, the people down there. They all work for the National Science Foundation, and they do a lot of science down there. It's amazing how. And there's also a dormant volcano that they go to, and they do core samples and all kinds of science stuff that's down there. And even today, and originally the Navy was the very first back in the late 50s that was there with the exploration. And then the LC-130s, these are C-130s with skis.
Oh my God.
Land in the snow. Okay. They're out of Schenectady, New York. Originally, the Navy gave LC-130s to the National Science Foundation and the Air National Guard out of Schenectady, New York. And the Air Force Reserve uses C-17s out of Washington State and flies people from Christchurch, New Zealand to McMurdo Station. And the LC-130s are used to ferry all of the supplies needed to the South Pole from McMurdo, plus scientists that go down and visit the South Pole. And then in February, everybody leaves and they get out of there because that's where the winter comes in. And once you're there after like the beginning of March, you're there until the following October.
And how many people are there at the station at any one time?
I want to say there's probably a couple of 100 people down there.
All right.
You know, and it's amazing because it's like 24/7 daylight down there. I had to hang a rug over the window of the room I was in to get darkness so I could get sleep. And you cross the date line and everything, and you really got to watch the clock, because I tried to call home a couple of times. And when I went to call home, I had to call home in the middle of the night so I wouldn't wake anybody up in Pittsburgh.
Yes, right. Oh, that's so neat. Thank you, Ron. Thank you for that. And thank you, Dale, for the. Yeah.
Can I say something else?
Please.
When he mentioned hauling the garbage away from McMurdo, this is kind of funny. All icebreakers have WAGB designation. W before the racing stripe and the Coast Guard cutters before in front of a number used to mean it was a Coast Guard cutter. You couldn't really tell them apart from Navy ships other than a W in front of the whole number. Well, when the racing stripe came, they just put the whole number and got rid of the W, but they kept the W designation for a Coast Guard cutter. So high endurance cutters, WHEC, and all icebreakers are WAGB. The AGB during World War II used to stand for auxiliary gunboat. So it was a Coast Guard auxiliary gunboat is what the designation, WAGB designation is. However, the people on the boat used to refer to them before they were painted red as white Arctic garbage barges.
Man, and I do think that it would be possible to get stuck on the polar star in the ice. I mean, just if I don't know, it just sounds like it's in terrible shape, and they're constantly fixing it, and you just have to have really good mechanics who know the ship really well, be on top of it all the time, because at any time it could break down. And I think the Healy, didn't it break down? Because there's one heavy icebreaker, then there's one medium size, which is the US the Healy, the USCG Healy, I think.
Yeah, it's I don't know anything about it. It's actually bigger than Polar Star, and it was created strictly for research. And it's only even though it's bigger, it's considered a medium icebreaker.
Yeah, and I think it broke down like last year,
Uh,
and I think it's in dry dock getting repaired.
yeah, I think they commissioned that in the 90s, so it's not really. It's probably it's 20 years old at least.
Yeah, yeah, and the Polar Star is 45 years old this year. 45 years old this year, I think. Commissioned 1976. So,
Yeah.
boy, that is interesting. Okay, well, that was. Hey, John DeLallo, how are you?
I'm feeling well, actually. I got my souvenir yesterday from the Veterans Administration.
Very
And,
nice.
Just a quick advert for the VA. They've got this COVID-19 vaccination thing down. I've had my second one. Other than a sore arm, I feel great, and I had the shot at about 1 o'clock yesterday afternoon. I had a question though for Dale. Dale, how come, how's come? Pardon my Pittsburgh. Why does the Navy not use something on the order of an LCAT or what have you to zip those supplies in from Patagonia or Chilean port or whatever down to the McMurdo station? I mean, it just seems to me skimming over top of that ice would be a hell of a lot easier than trying to bust through it.
I have no idea other than the fact that a lot of the things they transport is fuel, which would be heavy, to make sure that they have enough heat to keep everybody warm. So other than that, I'd have no idea what the advantage is.
And I think the idea of an icebreaker is to keep sea lanes open when they're frozen, so that other ships could go through. I think that's one of the main functions, even river systems, right? And lakes, the Great Lakes, correct? I think. Yeah,
they have the Coast Guard actually has more icebreakers in the Great Lakes. I think there's 6 or 8 on the Great Lakes. There's 2 Mackinac class. I think they're about 125 feet long, and I think there's 4 or 6. They're smaller ones for use in the ports. They're only like 65 feet long or something like that.
Okay.
But they work year round. They're working now. Once the lakes start to freeze over, they work continuously until they thaw.
Huh. So they're at work right now.
I can tell you one thing. Back in 2006, the Coast Guard couldn't be in Antarctica, and they actually had a Russian icebreaker down at McMurdo breaking the ice. And what happened was they actually broke a propeller, and they had to bring in a team of Navy divers to pull the propeller off to repair it. And it was amazing because the Navy divers would jump in the water. They could only be underwater for like 10, 15 minutes. Then they had to get out, and 2 more divers had to replace them because of the cold temperature of the water and the down at the dock down there at the Antarctic Sea. It's amazing.
Gosh, I am freezing just thinking about that, Ron. Oh,
hey, Todd, how do I send you a picture?
You can put it in the chat if you'd like.
Put it in the chat. Let me.
And if you want to share your screen, I think we could allow you to share your screen. Well, we trust you.
No, let me see here. Chat. Paste. I don't know if it'll paste or not.
I know. Hey, Ryan and Eric and Lee from the Vet Center, they're going to present about the Vet Center, about PTSD. Do you mind that we're doing a little bit of preliminary chit chat? You're okay? You don't have anywhere to go? Okay. Thank you. Man, that beard is luxurious, Eric, I have to say. I just saw you shake your head in it. You're like John Brown.
Kind of reminds me of Patrick Rothfuss, the fantasy author.
See, I don't know who that is, but I know
I
who
should
John
show a
Brown was.
picture.
I'm prepping for my beard modeling gig here next few years.
That's great.
Todd,
Oh man, terrific. And I
Todd.
do
It's
want
actually he's Hagrid.
Hagrid. That's who you. That's exactly who you are.
Yeah, we have a
Listen.
picture of him on his door.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Quite frankly, though, all the guys here, their hair combined doesn't equal my beard. So they're all a little jealous. So, and then if I add the hair on top, that doubles what they don't have. So
We're all very jealous.
That's right. That's right. That's right.
Todd,
Yes.
can I say one thing about McMurdo for my Seabees? Seabees have been involved down there on an occasional basis since 1960. And in that one picture you showed, there was a round building in the bottom. I think that was the CB logo on the roof. They've gone down there to do special construction. CBs have more than just regular battalions. They have underwater divers. They have CB teams. It's quite extensive. I just looked at CBs at McMurdo, and it shows a list of men in the CBs who've been there at various times. So
That-
I just wanted to get a plug in.
Yeah.
They're in the round building.
It says NSF. It must be. I think it says NSF, National Science Foundation.
Probably.
Yeah.
But the
Yeah,
CBs
NSF is National Science Foundation.
Okay. So not the
have been
CBs.
there.
Do you know what? We could Photoshop a CB's logo right there for you, Dennis. That is so interesting to me. The other interesting thing, I did so much reading this morning and watching stupid videos. But I learned something that I didn't know. And that is, and I want to ask about this, any of you who know about it. The Navy has CBs, the Army has the Corps of Engineers. The Air Force also has a construction engineering force, which I didn't know about. Red Horse?
Yeah, Red Horse and Prime Beef. But Red Horse is the primary.
Red Horse and Prime Beef.
Yeah.
Great nicknames. But I mean, that I just never knew about that. Never knew about Red Horse.
Oh yeah, I've worked a lot when I worked air base operability with the whole thing that if you sustained an attack on the airfield, that you get it back operating. So they were the folks that could run out and fill in
Right.
bomb craters in the runway or whatever needed to be done to get it back open. Plus, they were the people you sent. If you had to go to an austere airfield where you just had a runway and you had to put up tents, water purification, everything. They're the folks that went in and put that together.
Yeah. And before that, before Red Horse, the Air Force had to rely on the Army. And you call the Army in and, they could take their time getting there. So, I mean, they were doing the Air Force a favor. So the Air Force decided to be self-reliant. I just think that's so interesting. And I want to read up more about it. I also want to read up more about the F-117, which I was reading about this morning, in addition to the Polar Star. But before we go on to Ryan and Eric, I do want to ask if anybody else has an announcement to make or anything to, John DeLallo about his vaccine. Ron, if you live in Butler County, there's a walk-in clinic on Saturday, correct?
Yes, and that's for all veterans who are registered with the Butler VA hospital, who also use the VA clinics like at Cranberry or Armstrong County, any clinic that's tied to the Butler VA system. Also, I just found out yesterday that the VA clinics at Westmoreland County, Rochester, PA, Beaver County, Washington, PA, and down in Uniontown are all taking appointments to start giving veterans who live in those areas that go to those clinics their COVID-19 vaccinations. And I just heard that yesterday afternoon talking to the VA hospital in Pittsburgh, because Westmoreland, Rochester, Washington, and Uniontown VA clinics are all part of the Pittsburgh VA system. So if you go to www.va.gov and you start looking into the healthcare links, at the different hospitals, Butler VA Hospital, as well as like the Pittsburgh VA Hospital. You'll be able to see what clinics are associated with them, and you can get your shots accordingly.
Very good.
I haven't heard anything yet if the Pittsburgh VA Hospital is having a clinic this Saturday or not. I haven't gotten any press releases. But when I do, Todd, I will be emailing that to you immediately.
Very good. Very good. And I did get your picture, by the way.
Oh, great.
Before we move on, I want to share it and let me know again, you know, if my audio goes out, if I'm having any kind of a problem, Ellie or Sean usually lets me know. But if they don't, please do let me know, because I hate to be, you know, thinking I'm sharing something and not. But this is a picture of Ron. Oh, you're muted, Ron.
That was my 52nd birthday. And that is the South Pole. That's the new South Pole that was built with all the supplies that the Air National Guard ferried down there, which was carried by the Air Force Reserve from Christchurch, New Zealand. The Navy had a dome back in the 50s, and that's still there. But this is everything they built, and it's amazing the inside of the South Pole Station. They even have an operating room for a doctor down there. They're growing vegetables down there inside these rooms down there year round.
That's just so fascinating. And again, could you tell me again what your role was while you were there?
Okay. I was the action officer. I worked for the Assistant Secretary of the Air Force for Manpower and Reserve Affairs in the Pentagon, who was the executive agent for the Department of Defense for Operation Deep Freeze. My job down there was one, as the action officer, to go literally visit the operation to comprehend everything that went on. You don't get it unless you go there and do it. But then also at that time, we were in the middle of rewriting the memorandum of agreement between Department of Defense and all of the government contracts and all the military services for the operations in support of Operation Deep Freeze. It took us 12 months to rewrite that memorandum of agreement and do all the coordination. The first time in 15 years it was rewritten to bring the memorandum of agreement for operations for the Department of Defense to support the National Science Foundation in what goes on down there. Also, I did the coordination for the rewrite of the Department of Defense directive, which told the DoD how things are to be coordinated with this being an international operation. And when I was there, we had actually updated everything we had. And that was like, it was amazing. It was just an additional duty as part of my job as an assistant to the Assistant Secretary of the Air Force. But I went down there to actually meet with everybody, to bring the memorandum of agreement, and actually people down there reviewed what we had put together with my team inside the Pentagon.
Fascinating. And Operation Deep Freeze was, could you summarize it in 2 sentences?
Yeah, Operation Deep Freeze is basically, it's the Department of Defense supporting the National Science Foundation with Antarctic operations.
Got it. Got it. That was 1 sentence. Very good, Ron. Thank you.
Oh, as a matter of fact, believe when the Navy was doing it, they used C-121s to fly supplies to the South Pole, and they actually lost one on the way to the South Pole. It is still there laying in the ice, and somewhere halfway between McMurdo Station and the South Pole, and it's in pristine condition, just laying in the snow. There's no bacteria. There's no bugs down there. It's amazing. You know, it's because it's just so cold, the air down there.
Oh boy, that's so interesting. And I love the C-130s with skis.
I'll tell you what I'll do. I will email you some pictures this week. If you'd like me to. I have a whole ton in my personal computer.
Please do. I think that'd be fascinating. Jeff Witherell?
I was just going to ask a question about the South Pole or Antarctica. That's a continent. So how deep is the ice to actually get to the Earth?
I have no idea. I'm not a scientist.
I was just curious because I was wondering about if you were talking about growing things. And I said, well, geez, I wonder if they could actually, get below the ice and actually, populate, the Earth, in the Antarctic area.
Everything they did was inside that building that was behind me.
Okay.
with sunlights and all kinds of stuff. Oh, and by the way, when I was down there on January, which was a summertime at the South Pole, it was 55 degrees below zero.
Oh boy. Boy. So Greg Yost, you said since the ice sheets actually move like 10 feet a year, the South Pole station is now like 70 yards away from the actual geographic South Pole. 2 miles. Seriously, like 2 miles. Okay. Any other announcements? I know we have Audrey here from PA Serves. Hello, Audrey. Good to see you. If you have anything announced, you could.
Hey, good morning, everybody. Just same as normal. I'll put our contact information in the chat. That way, if anyone has anything that they want to get a hold of us about, we'll reach out to you and get you where you need to go.
Do you know what? I'm going to ask you a question. I'm going to ask Ron a question. This is something that Sean and I discussed. Let me ask you this. I don't quite know how to handle this. Usually I'm able to handle things off to, some of our contacts. This one I'm not sure about. A 98-year-old veteran called me, and he is 90% disabled. He has a hearing before the VA, and he wants somebody to represent him at the hearing because he wants to appeal it and be 100% disabled. Again, he's 98 years old, and he said, like, who should I contact to represent me? And I had no idea how that works. I thought it might be Brian, if you know, or Ron, what should I suggest to him?
I would suggest that he gets in contact with a veteran service organization.
Right.
He'll sign a VA form 21-22. You can get that on the internet. Okay. Or I can even email you one if you'd like me to.
Great. Thank you.
On the 16th floor of the federal building, and they're all there. You've got various organizations. You've got the Pennsylvania Department of Military and Veterans Affairs. You've got the American Legion.
Okay.
You've got Disabled American Veterans. You've got AMVETS. You've got Paralyzed Veterans of America. And these organizations are all non-profit.
Right.
They do not charge a fee to represent any veterans. When you sign up that VA form 21-2, not only are you signing them up to be your representative, but they are also your power of attorney for VA purposes only. And they can represent you during the hearing with or without you and speak on your behalf as your power of attorney. And they can also help you for future veterans. They can help you process your claims, file your appeals. They can update your address, your information for you. They're there to help you. And I'll tell you what I'll do, Todd. I'll shoot you an email today with the names and the phone numbers of the veteran service organizations in the federal building, if you'd like me to.
Thank you. I would love that. Thank you so much, Ron. That would very much help. And I know, again, he's 98 years old. He's apparently at the VA Health Care Center. He called from a nurse's station, and his daughter, I think, lives in Florida. So maybe we could coordinate and get his daughter on it too.
Is he here in Pittsburgh?
Yeah.
At our VA here in Pittsburgh in Aspinwall?
I believe so.
I think I know the American Legion was setting up a station there one day a week. I don't know if they're still doing it or not.
Okay.
But I'll send you the names of the VSOs. We're not allowed as the VA to recommend,
right,
excuse me, any VSOs. Okay.
Right.
But I can give you the names and the phone numbers, and he can contact them, and they can help him out.
Great. Wonderful. Thank you very much, Ron. I appreciate that. And thank you, Larry, for the American Legion contact. Audrey put her contact information for PA Serves here in the chat. Ron, I'm so grateful. Don Nemchek also sends his gratitude to you for this help. This is terrific. Okay. All right. Well, let's go. Let's have Eric and Ryan talk. And before you start, I do want to, let's see here. I have a great photo here that I want to share first. Eric, that's you. Can you see this?
Yeah, I got it. Yep.
Okay.
Long time ago.
Yeah, no beard then.
Nope. Had to shave twice a day.
So this is a boot camp picture?
Yeah, that's a picture you get in boot camp. That was probably done in late 94 or beginning of 95. That's when I was at Paris Island.
Why did you join?
I kind of always wanted to join. As we discussed in the office yesterday, originally I wanted to be a fighter pilot, but you have to be good at math and science. And I think our office figured out none of us are good at math and science. That way we all ended up in combat arms in the infantry. So
if you couldn't be a fighter pilot, you were content to be a Marine.
Yep.
And how long were you in the Marine Corps?
4 years in the Marines. So I was an infantryman, was with 2nd Battalion, 8th Marines, 3rd Battalion, 6th Marines. Did 2 med floats on the 2 LPDs, the USS Austin and the USS Shreveport. And then I was in Panama at Rodman Naval Station and then Fort Clayton for Jungle Warfare School.
Jungle Warfare School. Boy, that sounds like fun.
It was.
Really?
You drink a lot of water, and you get lost. Or you don't get lost, you get disoriented is the correct term.
Oh, it sounds like a nightmare to me. I was being sarcastic. I mean, to a Marine, I guess it would be fun. But yeah, and then from memory, I seem to remember you then re-upping with the Florida National Guard.
Yeah, I moved. I'm from Florida originally and moved back and joined the Florida Army National Guard, Alpha Company 3rd of the 124th Infantry based in Tallahassee, Florida, and was with them from 1999 until I got out in 2004.
Okay.
Mobilized for force protection after 9/11, and then did the initial invasion in Iraq in 2003.
Oh, you were part of that. Oh, well, we could talk about maybe your service a little bit later, but what is it like to go from the Marines to a National Guard outfit? I've heard stories about that transition could be hard on everybody.
It's a different transition because it's different vocabulary. The overall aspects of, I went from a Marine infantry unit to a Guard infantry unit is, the same, close with and destroy the enemy, but by superior firepower. Just how you go about doing that's a little bit differently with the size of the squads. The Marine Corps squad was 13 people. The Army squad was 9 folks. So there was some different things that had changed in different vocabulary. The Army, when I joined, was big on battle drills, which it was, battle drill. I don't even have memorized to this day, battle drill 2 Alpha, movement to contact, and they'd say, you need to remember that. What do they call it in the Marine Corps? And I would say movement to contact. We're crayon eaters, so we keep it very simple in the Marines. Versus how the Army did things. But after you got in for a while, you figured it out, and it's still the basics of basic infantry operations.
You and Ryan are here as part of the VA Vet Center, and you want to talk about PTSD. Would you want me to show that video? There's a 2 or 3 minute video that maybe should go first. What do you say, Ryan?
Yeah, that sounds great.
Okay. I will share my screen and hopefully you'll be able to hear it. I'm a little concerned that it won't work. And if it doesn't, then maybe Ellie, you could let Ryan share his screen and he could share it. We can figure this out. Let's try it this way first.
Have you or someone you love ever been in a tornado or car accident? Experienced sexual or physical abuse? Served in a war zone?
Yeah, it's frozen.
Most people have been through some kind of...
All right, it's frozen. It's not working. I don't know what's going on with my Zoom. I'll have to look that up. Ryan, do you have this handy? If you could share it.
Grab it here real quick.
You should be able to share your screen too.
Okay, one second.
Okay, and Brian shares another primary contact for veterans would be the County Veterans Affairs Office. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you, Brian. Okay, Glenn, you were able to see it, huh? Glenn Flickinger was able to see the video on his screen.
Yeah, I saw it. No problem. It was interesting.
Oh.
So let's see here. Share screen. All right. This one, I guess. Share.
There we go. Yep.
Everyone see
Good.
that?
Yep. Perfect.
Have you or someone you love ever been in a tornado or car accident, experienced sexual or physical abuse, served in a war zone? Most people have been through some kind of life-threatening or traumatic event, and it's common to have stress-related reactions after a trauma. But when symptoms last more than 3 months and they're not getting better, it's time to get help. Meet Sam. He recently returned from serving in Iraq. For many people, being in a
Volume could be louder.
busy grocery store feels comfortable, but not for Sam. With
Yeah, and that's a share volume function. When you go to share your screen, there's a little box that you could tick in the bottom left to share your sound also.
And even then, he's too on edge to really enjoy it. At home,
Is everyone having a problem hearing that? My volume's all the way up. So
yeah, could you stop it, Ryan?
Yeah, I
Let's
did
do a
stop
little- Okay, we'll do a little and then stop sharing.
Okay.
We'll do a little very quick tutorial. There's if you click your share screen button, there's a little box in the far lower left that says share sound. If you don't check that, your sound won't share with us. So what we'll hear is just what's coming out of your speakers through your microphone. But if you click share sound, we'll hear it directly from your computer, and the sound should be crystal clear. So why don't you try and share again?
I'm bad at this.
You could pick up where
Share
you left
computer
off.
sound. I got it.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's hope this works. Can you guys see the screen?
Yep.
Home, things aren't the way they used to be either. His sleep is restless at best, and some nights Tara isn't sure if Sam comes to bed at all. Sam seems to have a short fuse these days, and sometimes he snaps at Tara over tiny misunderstandings. What he and Tara never talk about is the trauma he experienced when he was deployed. He's never mentioned the guilt, the weight he carries around, wishing he could have done more to prevent what happened. Instead, he's turned inward, pulling away from family and friends. Tara tried to give him some space, but after months passing without change, she really started to worry. She was the one to finally say what they were both thinking. It's time to get help. That's when Sam finally decided to take action. He reached out to a doctor who told him about PTSD, or post-traumatic stress disorder. Sam's symptoms were getting in the way of enjoying his life. Re-experiencing, hyperarousal, feeling worse about yourself or the world, and avoidance are the 4 types of symptoms people with PTSD have. Sam's doctor explained each. The first is reliving the event, or re-experiencing. This is often an unwanted memory or even a flashback where you feel like you're right back in the situation again. Seeing, hearing, or even smelling something that reminds you of the trauma can trigger these. Nightmares where you relive parts of the event in your sleep are common too. The second is avoidance, staying away from situations that remind you of the trauma. That's why Sam tries to avoid thinking about painful memories altogether. He pours himself into his work or uses alcohol to keep his mind from going back to the trauma. The third is feeling worse about yourself or the world since the trauma. You might feel overwhelming guilt like Sam or not trust anyone. You just might not be able to feel happy, even when you are around people you love. The fourth type of symptom is sudden rushes of anger, irritability, feeling jittery, always on alert, always on the lookout for danger. This is called hyperarousal, and loud noises or a driver cutting in front of you can be all it takes to set you off. If you recognize any of these symptoms of PTSD in yourself or someone you love, don't wait. See your doctor to find out if it could be PTSD. Just like Sam and Tara found, there is hope. You don't have to live with the symptoms of PTSD forever. Effective treatments are available. To learn more about PTSD or how to get help, Visit the National Center for PTSD website at www.ptsd.va.gov.
Thank you, Ryan. Perfect.
Yeah.
And now I think you have a PowerPoint that I could share. And if you don't see it, you can let me know. This should be a picture of Eric. And then this is a PTSD in the vet center.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. The floor is yours.
Eric, if you want to go ahead.
Oh, okay. So I think the video really kind of did a good job in showing what PTSD is and how it impacts you. And as a counselor here at the vet center, we see that on a pretty consistent basis. And I think the easiest way to kind of think about PTSD is it's your body's natural, your brain's natural way to cope with trauma. Most people that go through traumatic experiences tend to recover naturally over time as you reintegrate into whatever you're doing and going about life. But the way that I've been taught to deal with PTSD and treatment is that you look at PTSD as at some point you get stuck in the recovery process. And that's where I come in, and the vet center staff and the VA staff, behavioral health come in to help, is to get you unstuck. And so when you saw those clusters of the re-experiencing and the arousal and the alterations, how I describe PTSD is that you grow up in the world prior to the military, for example. And we'll use the military example because that's what's going to relate to this. But you grow up the world and you develop beliefs about how you see the world, how you see people around you, your community, and how you see yourself in all these things. And if you have a good upbringing or foundation, you generally believe that the world is a safe and great place. And you can trust people and you can do things and enjoy life. If you have the opposite, let's say you come from maybe a split household, abusive, you were abused as a child, physically, emotionally, sexually. Your general worldview is not going to be good going into the military. But once you get into the military is very good at giving you new values and beliefs. And they tell you the world's dangerous and we're going to destroy our enemies and we need to be on guard. So you buy into that because you have to. If you don't, you're not going to have a good military experience. And then if you go to combat, for example, people shoot at you, people around you die, loved ones die around you. That either changes those beliefs that you didn't have before or validates the beliefs that the world is an unsafe place. Does this make sense? So then you come back from combat, for example, and you have these new beliefs, and it's not to trust anyone. It's to try to be in control at all times. You may feel guilty about an experience that happened over there. And so you now have, for a combat veteran, you have a new set of beliefs about how you see the world, how you see other people around you, your community, and how you see yourself. And you bring that back into society, right? The civilian society. And those beliefs don't naturally kind of click with how the rest of society functions. And so then you're kind of out there on your own, struggling to readjust. And some people, it just takes time to reassimilate back in and to change those beliefs. But some people really get stuck with these beliefs. And therefore, that's when we see the PTSD symptoms, the hypervigilance, the anger, the irritability, the anxiety, the avoidance, the hypervigilance, et cetera, impacting our veterans.
So eloquent, Eric. Thank you. And I've been thinking about these issues a lot, and you just happen to define PTSD in a way that I've been thinking about it recently as I've been, reading about the issue. And it does seem that it's kind of like, it's more than just, you had one trauma and, you have to get over it. It's more like a worldview that has been changed. The world isn't what you think it is. You are not who you think you are. Other people are not the way you think way you thought they were, maybe as a child or growing up. My question is, I know you have more to talk about, more to present. This is a hard question to ask, I guess. Is there something that we can do as a civilian society, as a community, to kind of prepare people for some of the harsher truths of the world? I'm a father. I had 2 daughters. I sometimes think I kind of sheltered them too much, a protective father.
I don't think so. I don't think until you live it or been in some place like there, you understand. I think there's such a disconnect between the civilian population and the military now that it's hard for people to understand what happens in the military. I've always used the example, there was a Marine Corps sniper team years ago that got in trouble. One of their snipers was killed, and then they killed the snipers, and they desecrated that insurgent's body. I think they urinated.
Yes.
And they took a picture.
Yes.
I get it. I understand it. The person that's never served may look at that as kind of a horrific event, where in the military it may not be. And if you read, and I think it's always been that way, if you read books about World War II, for example, Eugene Sledge's book about Peleliu, what the Marines did to the Japanese, I mean, they pried out their teeth to get their gold. Like, if Ryan and I were in now and did that, we would be locked up, Ryan, wouldn't we? It's always been there, but with social media now, it's in instant access. It's really out there, and it's kind of shocking. And it's if you think back in history with the Life magazine cover of the dead GIs, they didn't want to publish that at first on, I think that was at Guadalcanal, if I'm correct.
New Guinea.
It was a significant thing for Life to do because it showed the reality of war. And I don't necessarily know if we have the society that sees the reality of war these days.
I'd like to add something else about PTSD that really came to my knowledge, like mostly when I started working here at the vet center a few years ago. And that was that it was late onset PTSD, right? We had, it had always just been in my head that, like, you suffer a traumatic event and then, very soon thereafter you have, PTSD or stress or something like that. But I came to find out that we had a client here who was, perfectly fine for his many years of living after he had been deployed to Vietnam. He had a job, he had family, he had lots of things to keep himself occupied. And then it wasn't until he got a call for a reunion with his fellow service members that really sent him, down a rabbit hole, and all these feelings came crashing back. And he then, at that point, 40 years later in his life, really began to suffer from PTSD. And I think that really gets to the point of, like, how the vet center can help with these things is, as Eric said, getting people unstuck, or, addressing trauma in your life, especially if it's combat related, that you may have unknowingly, buried. And it can kind of come out at any time. And I think that's why we both as civilians and as veterans, have to be aware of our own mental health and pay attention to it, because it can be important. There can be different triggers for different people, and we have to also be a little easy on yourself, right? The military really pushes mission accomplishment on us, and doing that at any cost, and in a lot of ways at the cost of your own physical or mental health. And it's really just now starting to change in the military to not have such a stigma around mental health. And that's taken, 2 decades of work to change, to even really begin to change that stigma in military service, right? If your legs weren't broken or your back wasn't busted, if you could report for duty, then you need to be there, right? It's only been recently that we've taken a little bit more serious approach and trained ourselves and instilled this belief in leadership and in the service members that if you need to go to counseling for mental health, then you should go, and that is a valid reason, and that is okay, right? And it's still, by no means is it perfect. That's not what I'm saying, but I am saying that it is now something that is not front and center, but there's a level of awareness that is there today that was not there when I first enlisted in 2002.
Really? You really see a difference?
I do. I think that, like I said, it's the military is always kind of slow to change in certain ways. But I can say that you are probably just as likely to get a positive response or an understanding response if you were to go to someone and say, I need to see a counselor, as you might be to get a negative one. But I think that stigma is starting to lessen in the military, and that's just like anything else. That is not an absolute statement, but I think that it has taken a long time to get to that point. But I think that it has become much more aware in military circles.
Ron Gianto, you want to add something about filing for PTSD claim?
Yes, I would. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, I would. There's no time frame for ever filing a claim for PTSD. We have veterans today. I had a veteran, he was 90 years old. He was in World War II. I mean, he came back from the war, life was good, got hooked up with a sweetheart, got married, had children, got a job. Everything was well. The kids are grown up, they're going away. His wife passes away. Now he's all by himself. He's 90. And now he's having issues with PTSD and what he experienced under a kamikaze attacks aboard ship in the South Pacific. I had a Vietnam veteran, came back from Vietnam. And he had an experience in Vietnam. And he kind of like just came home from Vietnam. He got himself a job. He was professional and he worked all his life and life was good. But now he's retired and he doesn't have his job anymore. And at age 70, he files his first claim for PTSD because of what he experienced in Vietnam. There's no time frame ever for the PTSD that I've seen in processing veterans' claims where it sets in and starts to become an issue in life. And it's never too late to ever file a claim for the VA, because the VA, like the vet centers, are here to help our veterans.
So I think what Ryan was saying, when you look at the PTSD symptoms, is when you think about avoidance, a lot of times when you come back from the military, and especially combat tours, you sit around and you think about all these things you want to do, these goals you want to achieve, etc. And then you come back home and there's natural avoidance built in to PTSD. You may go to college, you may get married, you may have kids. And so when Ryan referenced the Vietnam vet, we saw an increase in Vietnam vets needing services for PTSD and war zone issues, because after they retired, all of a sudden they had this time on their hands and there was no more avoidance. They weren't working anymore. Their kids were adults. So we saw an increase in that. We'll probably see an increase in Desert Storm veterans getting counseling in the next, 5 to 10 years. And I think our numbers here with Desert Storm veterans have gone up. And then Ryan and my generation, I'll be 45 this year. So we're still looking at another, 15, 20 years until my generation really gets into the retirement age where we may see significant impact. So it does go in cycles in terms of demand of services and problems. And I think overall we've leveled out with the rush of the younger veterans needing help. It's a steady trickle now versus what it was years ago.
Hey, Eric or Brian, I think everybody met my daughter when we were down at San Antonio. She's a physical therapist. She's probably the expert on all kind of disabilities and things like that for the physical therapy side of the Army. And she had great experiences overseas and then also at Walter Reed and everything. And she was saying when she was at Walter Reed, the biggest thing that really improves the soldiers, whether they're PTSD or paraplegics or whatever, she said once you get the guy out of bed and get him down the hallway with his buddies, that was probably the biggest thing you could do to rejuvenate the soldier. And I wondered, once they get out of the treatments and everything, and they go to outpatient or whatever, then they end up going home. How do they get back with their buddies? How do they keep from going into the alcoholism, sitting home watching TV or something?
So I know for us, we've had group counseling here for years, and the vet center kind of foundationally was based on the groups. So we've had group counseling for veterans to engage with other members of their community in a group setting. The younger veterans also, if you think about it, tend to use social media. So they have connected with a lot of their peers that they actually served with in their units over Facebook and text messaging and web pages, etc. So there is a group dynamic there that is offered both locally, which I run an Iraq, Afghanistan group. We have 2 Vietnam groups here. And then I actually travel to Uniontown and have a large Vietnam group, which is broken up into smaller groups right now. That's par for the course for the Vet Center. The VA has also had groups as well. The challenge we see is Vietnam veterans have a lot of time now to attend groups. Iraq and Afghanistan veterans don't have a lot of time to attend groups due to their married and responsibilities and relationships and jobs. Pittsburgh traffic is detrimental for people to attend groups also in the evening time as well. So the other thing that I've brought up before is the demographics have changed too of how society functions. So Vietnam veterans and World War II veterans and Korean veterans, traditionally, when you think of the old school days, the veteran was typically a man, and then they came back home and worked. And so then the wife was at home taking care of everything now at home, raising the kids, getting dinner ready. So the veteran would have time to go to the group or the local watering hole back in the day, or both, to reconnect with veterans. Nowadays, you have my wife works, I work, kids, and an example, my veterans, it's juggling the different responsibilities of raising a family and everything. So I think that's impacted the younger generation's veterans of attending groups, more extracurricular activities for their kids, et cetera, and responsibilities of just overall parenting. So it's changed the dynamics, I think, over the course of time with attending groups. But a lot of these guys that serve and gals that serve reconnect with one another via social media, stay in touch. I use Facebook. I'm friends with all the Marines that I serve with, and then all the Guard guys I serve with too. And I keep in touch that way. And I can see what they're doing. And I was in Florida at the beginning of the month and reached out to a couple of them, and we linked up briefly to say hi. So that's how we do it now.
Thank you.
And I don't want you to go away without pitching the vet center and sharing information about the role that the vet center can play in healing, not only for you, but maybe for somebody you know. The vet center is a unique part of the VA system. There's a firewall, right, of information between the VA and the vet center. So if you get counseling at the vet center, my understanding is it doesn't, appear on your record with the VA, or you could explain the distinction better than I can, Eric.
Yeah, that's absolutely correct. The Todd has the history slide pulled up, but it was, the vet center was started by Vietnam veterans, and it was, mostly peer-to-peer counseling, right? Guys who felt like they weren't being treated great by the VA or when they came home. I mean, that was a very traumatic experience for a lot of Vietnam veterans coming home.
Yeah.
But it started then, and then it was kind of formalized and incorporated into the Department of Veterans Affairs. And then later on, I think in the early 90s, right after Desert Storm, they started to expand all of these services for combat veterans to everybody. The big thing here, we are VA employees. Since its inception, the vet center's purpose has been to be in the communities in which they're serving. So that's why we're not in the hospitals. And the whole idea is to reduce the barriers to treatment as much as possible. So if you are a veteran, you can be seen at a vet center, and the first line there, it's completely confidential and free. You don't have to be enrolled in VA healthcare service to come to a vet center. You just really at some point need to supply us with a proof of service, a DD-214 or something like that, so that we can continue to see you. You can get behavioral health counseling at the VA hospital, and it is good. One of the kind of downfalls of that is like you do have to typically go to the hospital, and depending on your income and what priority group you're in, you may be assessed a copay for mental health services. That's just the way it goes. At the vet center, it's completely free. We don't even have a method of billing people. No person outside of the vet center can access our records. So although we're part of the VA, we don't share our information with the rest of the VA. We can view VA health records, but they can't view ours. And we do counseling for individuals. Every vet center has a specially trained marital and family counselor, so you can bring your spouse or significant other or children in some cases to a counseling appointment. And we also have group counseling, as Eric was noting. There are two groups that we can see that do not have to be combat veterans. Those are survivors of military sexual trauma. Every vet center has a specially trained counselor to help out with cases of survivors of military sexual trauma, and then bereavement. So if you are a family member and you have lost a service member in a war zone, we can see you for bereavement counseling as well. And again, all of those services are free. These are all our locations around just the state. You can see our phone number and contact information there. And I'm looking. Did I not include White Oak on this list? Lee's on the call.
You have it as McKeesport still.
Oh, I still have it as McKeesport. I'm sorry, that must be an old list. So McKeesport is the White Oak Vet Center, which Lee is on there. You can give us a call. You can call any vet center. The phone will answer 24/7. If we are closed, if our office is closed at the time, it will go to our call center in Denver that answers 24/7. They'll get a message. If you are in crisis, they'll get you in touch with the crisis line or something else. And any vet center, if you for some reason are better suited for a different vet center or live closer to a different vet center, we will refer you over there and make sure you get a warm handoff. It's very simple to get enrolled for vet center services. It's a one-page sign up form, and like I said, we're here to help. And even if it's not a mental health situation, we are part of the VA, so we'll help you get in touch with the VA resource that you need if it's not something counseling related.
Ryan, I was going to also say the kind of internal title of our program is Readjustment Counseling Services. It's not PTSD counseling services. Instead, it's readjustment. Where the program was designed to help war zone veterans readjust, reintegrate into society. And so we see people that don't have PTSD diagnosis, but have war zone service or sexual trauma that are dealing with reintegration and readjustment. And I think that goes back to those values and beliefs that are instilled in you in the military that you bring back to your community, and you find having difficulty readjusting. So we do help folks out with that as well. But a lot of times we are seeing people with, some type of significant combat service, war zone service, et cetera. And then the only other thing I'd say is we didn't go over military sexual trauma that much, but if you go through military sexual trauma, typically what we see is people will get a PTSD diagnosis, and it applies the same knowledge that was passed on earlier, and we treat the PTSD associated with the sexual trauma.
I'm looking at the clock. We have 17 minutes left in this program. Glenn, I know Glenn has to drop off. I wanted to go to Chris Perolo, who had a story to share, and Clem had a couple questions for the group. Bob Dvorak, I think, had to drop off. Mary, I want to show some pictures. And I'm going to ask your forbearance and ask that we bump you all maybe to next week or Monday night or something like that. I always hate to do it. I feel terrible, but it just seems like there's a subject here I am interested in, and that is post-traumatic growth. I am a believer in it. And I think it like much of life, that the bad things that happen to you can be blessings in disguise, to put it very simply. The wound is the way in to growth, to wisdom, to growing as a human being. And it just seems to me that, and I think that's why I enjoy being around veterans so much, is so many of you are there. I mean, you've gone through, or you've become aware of things in the world that I haven't run across, and you've kind of grown through that exposure and through that experience. Are you guys believers in the concept of post-traumatic growth?
Yes, I am, for sure. And that's just based on my own personal experience. I may have talked about it a few times before on a Veterans Breakfast Club, or you may have heard it, but like between my first and second deployment, I was suffering from PTSD or PTSD-like symptoms, and I didn't really realize it. I fought that a lot, and it was largely due to the stigma, which I talked about a little bit. But I didn't quite realize how much I was suffering from it until we got the news that we were deploying a second time. And that's when I started to feel normal. And I was like, no one should really feel normal when they're getting ready to go to war, right? And then that's when I, decided to really jump more into counseling than I had been. And I think that those experiences, both through the counseling, and then immediately like having that realization, and then being responsible for the lives and welfare and training of the soldiers under my command. Like, I think that because my self-awareness was so much higher, and the things that I had suffered from helped me be a better leader, and helped me like ensure that I was more aware of what was going on with the soldiers under my command. And then also it just helped me grow as a person, and realizing like this, we all suffer, and we all have different baggage, and we all, can be struggling through issues, but realizing it is one of the first things. And then, it really helped me understand like my strengths and weaknesses, both as a person and as a soldier. Like, that was a very informed thing. So yeah, I think, Todd, I think you're absolutely correct.
It's like you can never quite go back to who you were before, but there is a path to a new Ryan, a bigger Ryan, and a Ryan that's been ennobled and made wiser. And I just seem, that's kind of what I hear in our veterans, just years and years of talking with them, that even bad experiences, I'm always struck. Okay, I know I'm talking, I'm babbling, but I'm always struck when somebody describes a horrible experience and then they'd say, I'd do it again. That's hard to grasp, but I think that the key is it can make you a bigger person. It could make you a better person.
I could chime in on that real quick, and appreciate Eric and Ryan doing a great job for all of our vet centers. But to your point, Todd, these are experiences that are lived by the individual, and I think it's up to the individual, and it's up to the path they take and the decisions they make to. I'm not a big fan of catchphrases, so I'm not a big fan of certain terminologies or whatnot. But I think it's important that they make meaning. So a lot of times when we see that post-traumatic growth, it's making meaning of the experiences they've had, specifically, combat trauma or sexual trauma. So there you can take something from it and move forward. Whether you call that post-traumatic growth or whatever, doesn't kill you, makes you strong, whatever it is, I prefer to kind of look at it as how can we have those experiences, make meaning of them, because in that those worlds of combat and trauma, there is no meaning. It's hard to walk away from that. Like, that all made perfect sense. What just happened? And that's not the case. So there's a lot of processing the experiences that needs to be done. And that's where counselors like Eric and others through the VA and wherever can help these men and women walk that path of making meaning, processing, understanding, so that they get unstuck and they move forward. So whether you want to call that whatever you like, but it's definitely not everyone does it. So that's the other point I want to make. Like, just because it happened doesn't make you actually stronger. There's a processing of that experience that has to happen, that the individual has to go through or should go through in some sort of way. And it could be group therapy, individual, that's all very individualized. But I think that's what makes it a growth, is, as Brian mentioned, there was a process to how he was made stronger or grew from that experiences. He processed it in a way. It just doesn't happen. There has to be some intention by the individual, I would say.
I was Lee kind of nailed it. The individual has to find it. And one of the terms we've said before in the vet center, I think, is finding purpose. You have to find purpose after serving in the military and after combat. And what's crazy to think about at times is when you join the Marines or the Army or the Navy, the Air Force, Coast Guard, et cetera, and you go off to combat and you put yourself in these experiences, or you serve 20, 30 years in the military, realistically, you went on the greatest adventure of your life and challenged yourself harder than anything. And so it's really hard to find the next exciting thing you think after you get out, and it's finding that purpose. And I saw a picture one time. It was a guy in Afghanistan with his gun, and it said PTSD, and it said, realizing this is the most awesome I'll be in my entire life. And, that kind of hit me because the image is cool. It's cool. It's neat when you're young to think about carrying guns and the gear and all the excitement and everything you've done in your life. And then you come back and, now you're working 9 to 5 and dealing with that stress, and you can't act the way you did while you were in the military, and you're stagnant in the place you live, and you're not bouncing around and exciting. So I think that's why, Todd, when you hear people say they do it again, it's because it's that adventure, excitement, that purpose, and it's hard to let go when it does happen. So
the camaraderie, right?
Yeah, Todd, I did see some questions on the chat about the impact of COVID on veterans, and I would just to kind of change subjects real quick. A lot of my younger veterans, I've noticed an increase in frustration and irritability over the last few months. I think that coincides with the winter coming on and the election cycle and everything that's happened afterwards. My younger vets have actually met me outside at parks locally because they want to get house and they need to get out of their house for that exposure. And a lot of them sit on a computer like we're doing right now all day. So the last thing they want to do is meet on a computer. My message to people that are struggling with the impact of COVID on your mental health is we all have to take safe precautions. Do what you feel is in your best interest safely. Push yourself. Do things in your capacity. I saw somebody down here said they knew somebody that killed themselves during this pandemic and the lockdowns and the isolation. You have to figure out safe ways to connect, and you have to push yourself and try new things. I encourage car rides to places and order food and eat it in the car or whatever, just to get out and break the monotony. Like you have to. So, but we do see an impact of that with our vets that have been isolated, and once we get through this winter time, I would assume the moods will improve some because you can get back outside more safely and not freeze your butt off.
Right. And I will put in a plug for catchphrases and cliches. I mean, as a writer, I hate them. And most of the time I hate them. But I think I've discovered as I've gotten older that they could function as a kind of a mantra, something to remind you of where you should be paying attention. So if you have post-traumatic stress, you really need to pay attention to that. But the reflex is to avoid it. The reflex is to go in the other direction, is to run away from it, is to make sure you're not in situations where it's going to come up, when really you do have to go into it. And that's so hard. And so sometimes you need a phrase like, if it doesn't kill me, it can make me stronger. Something to remind you that if you want to be stronger, you've got to go into the trauma, into the wound. And that's, boy, so much easier said than done. Okay.
I should add a plug here that Eric and Ryan and Lee will be joining the Scuttlebutt this week. We're going to record on Thursday. We're gonna talk about the Vet Center in general. A lot of what the Scuttlebutt is understanding military culture. So we kind of take it back to square one and say, what is the Vet Center? Why does it exist? We may dive a bit more into this PTS discussion. But I think it's important for the Scuttlebutt's audience to understand, if they don't know anything about the Vet Center, how they can get involved with it. I'm really excited to have these three gentlemen on to talk about that. And then in a future episode of the Scuttlebutt, I believe Ryan and Eric are going to join me to talk more in depth about PTS. And we're looking forward to that discussion as well. So I just want to thank you three gentlemen for not only joining us today, but for joining me on Thursday. And I hope everyone here looks for that episode to be released on next Monday. Yeah.
Oh boy.
Yep. I actually have one other thing to mention. March 29th, the Vet Center and the VA is going to be partnering on doing a Vietnam Veterans Recognition virtual event from like noon to 1:30. We're still working out the specifics of the agenda, but just wanted to give you guys a kind of a save the date, March 29th.
And March 2nd is Julia Parsons' birthday. And I'm going to bring this up again because she's not here again on this Wednesday morning. We are planning, as you know, a kind of a drive-by parade, balloons, a sign. We'll deliver a cake, maybe ice cream. Jim Roberts, I know that you and Linda are friends with Julia, your neighbors. I'd love to enlist you in the effort. And anybody who wants to be a part of the effort, who has any ideas, I know Chris Perolo had an idea or two of getting a Navy recruiting command involved. Maybe their car can come and join the effort. Jim, did you want to say something? Okay. So if any of you have any suggestions for, how to honor Julia for her 100th birthday on March 2nd, you could let me know. Clem.
Hey, Todd.
Yes.
Hey, Todd, where is the car parade going to meet?
It's in Forest Hills. That's a good question. She lives in Forest Hills. It would be Ardmore. It'd be right off Ardmore Boulevard. Yeah, Jim Roberts.
Right. Julie lives in an area of Forest Hills called Edgewood Acres. If you're coming off the Parkway heading heading on Route 30, it's like the second traffic light on the right.
Okay. And what time of day will that be?
We're not quite sure. I'm thinking noon. We're looking for Don Nemchik.
Yeah, Todd, just my own thought. Have anyone contacted Congressman Doyle's office or the county that they can get a proclamation handed, prepared for Julia and get it over to her on her celebration of the 100th birthday?
I did. I contacted Doyle's office and they said they think they can do it, but they're not sure they can show up. Jim.
Doyle's a neighbor too. He's right. He lives less than 300 yards away from Julia.
If you see him, plug him. Buttonhole him. Yeah, because I think a proclamation would be great. I think it's too late to get the White House to do anything. I should have been working on that, last year. But I think we could at least get her congressman to issue a proclamation. So if you have any ideas, please do email me. I'm going to contact the recruiting command. Yes, Jeff.
I know the White House, you're not going to be able to do the White House because I worked at the White House and they're shut down because of the pandemic. But you could contact the governor of the state, and they'll send them out for 100 years. And like you say, the Congress meet people and everything like that. The governor is available.
Very good. Thank you. Perfect. Yeah, and I don't know who our state rep or state senator is. I'll have to figure that out. Maybe you know that.
I think that's Costa out there in Fort
Costa. It is. You're right. It is.
And Summer Lee is state rep.
Who is state rep?
Summer Lee.
Got it.
But Costa is very big into the veterans, and he sponsors an annual event in October.
Right.
And so he should be amicable to doing something.
Very good. Very good.
Maybe one of them can fly a flag for her over the state capitol and present it to her. That's easily done.
That's a good idea. Okay.
And Fetterman happens to live less than 2 miles from here too. He's from Braddock.
Okay. Very good. All right.
Hey, you organize the parade. I'll get the chapter minivan in it.
Oh, that'd be wonderful. Thank you, Joe. That'd be terrific. And then we're having a virtual party that evening. So I'll send out invitations to that, and we'll celebrate Julia's life. All right. I think that's good. What a wonderful session. Larry Gamrett, good to see you as always. Thank you for joining us. Andy, I'll be seeing you at FedEx Ground. Good to see you, Andy Loeb.
Yeah, sorry, I'm a little late this morning, Todd.
That's okay.
With everything.
yeah, you have a job, I'm not burdened with such nonsense. Great. I hope to see you tomorrow night. Sean Hall will be hosting Generation 9/11, and we'll be continuing our conversation of 9/11, but also working the connections between Desert Storm and 9/11. And my apologies to you, Chris Parolo and Clem. I know you have a couple things to share or ask. And Mary. All right, we'll pick that up later. All right.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
All right. Have a good day, everyone.
Really appreciate your